Princess Stephanie of Belgium is 16 years old. It's her wedding night. She was led to the altar as an innocent child, completely unprepared. Years later, she writes in her memoirs, "What a night! What agony! What revulsion! I thought I would die of my disappointment." This is not the beginning of a fairy tale. This is the beginning of a 64-year tragedy. Stephanie was supposed to become Empress of Austria. Instead, she was infected with syphilis by her husband, turned into a scapegoat widow after a murder-suicide, thrown out of her mother's funeral chapel by her own father, and disinherited and forgotten by her daughter. And when the Red Army came in 1945, she died alone in a Hungarian monastery. This is Princess Stephanie of Belgium, and her story shows what happens when women become royal commodities. Belgium, 1864, Laeken Palace near Brussels. Stephanie is born as the second daughter of King Leopold II, one of history's most brutal colonial rulers. The man who exploited the Congo as private property and let millions die. But his daughters? He has no interest in them. Stephanie's childhood is icy, literally. In winter, the windows at Laeken remain open. Ice-cold washing water for toughening up. Her mother, Queen Marie Henriette, shows no interest in the children of the man she despises. When Stephanie's only brother Leopold dies at age 9, the king blames the queen. The parents separate. The daughters become ghosts in their own palace. Stephanie later writes, "From that moment on, my parents' married life darkened. My mother had changed greatly. This child had been the goal of her life. But Leopold II has a plan for his useless daughters. They are commodities, and Stephanie is sold to Austria, spring 1880. Crown Prince Rudolph of Austria comes to Belgium. He is 21. Stephanie is 15. Rudolph writes to his mother, "She is pretty, good, intelligent. I have found what I was looking for." What he does not write. Stephanie was one of the few Catholic princesses still available, a fallback option. The engagement is announced. But then catastrophe strikes. Stephanie's ladies-in-waiting discover she hasn't started menstruating yet. The wedding is postponed. Stephanie is sent back to Belgium. The humiliation is public. Both courts know. In a time when the female body is a matter of state, this becomes a scandal. And Rudolph? He brings one of his mistresses to the engagement celebration in Belgium, May 1881. Days before her 17th birthday, Stephanie marries Crown Prince Rudolph in Vienna. The ceremony is magnificent. The reality is a nightmare. Rudolph's mother, the famous Empress Elizabeth, Sisi, despises her daughter-in-law from the start. She calls Stephanie the ugly, clumsy oaf, a moral heavyweight, and ugly elephant. And then comes the wedding night. Stephanie is completely unprepared, uneducated about what to expect. In her memoirs, written over 50 years later, she writes, "What a night! What agony! What revulsion! I thought I would die of my disappointment." This is the beginning of her marriage. 2 years later, Stephanie gives birth to a child, Archduchess Elizabeth Marie, called Ersi, a girl, no heir to the throne, but at least a child. Hope remains, perhaps a son. Then catastrophe. Rudolph is deep in depression and affairs. During one of these affairs, he contracts syphilis. He takes Stephanie to the island of Laeken, supposedly for recovery. There he infects his wife. The doctors lie to Stephanie. They tell her she has peritonitis, and when the couple tries to conceive a second child, a son and heir, the truth emerges. Stephanie has become infertile. At 22 years old, Rudolf had destroyed his wife, and with it, her hope for a future as empress. Stephanie refuses to resume marital duties. The marriage is dead, but Stephanie doesn't remain passive. During a trip to Galicia, she meets Polish Count Artur Potocki. She falls in love, and she makes no secret of it. Only her sister Louise knows and acts as messenger. While Rudolf publicly parades with his 17-year-old mistress Mary Vetsera, Stephanie conducts her own quiet rebellion. This is no longer a failed marriage. This is war. Autumn 1888. Stephanie returns from a trip to Greece. She is horrified by what she sees. In her memoirs, she writes, "I was horrified when I saw the Crown Prince. His decay had progressed so far that it had become conspicuous. He was terribly changed. His skin was flaccid. His eyes were restless. It seemed as if a process of internal dissolution was taking place." Stephanie is desperate. She goes to her father-in-law, Emperor Franz Joseph. She warns him. She begs for help. Franz Joseph completely ignores her. January 30th, 1889, dawn. Mayerling hunting lodge in the Vienna woods. 2 bodies are found. Crown Prince Rudolf, 30 years old, gunshot wound to the head. Baroness Mary Vetsera, 17 years old, gunshot wound to the head. A murder-suicide pact. Rudolf had shot Mary first, then himself. And Stephanie? She is among the last to be informed. When she is finally summoned, Emperor Franz Joseph sits in the middle of the room. Empress Elizabeth stands beside him, face white and rigid. Stephanie later writes, "In my confused, shaken state, I believed I was being looked at like an unfaithful wife. A crossfire of questions, some of which I could not answer, some of which I was not permitted to answer, descended upon me." Elizabeth, Rudolf's mother, blames Stephanie. The jealous wife had driven her son to suicide. Rudolf's last letter to Stephanie lay on the nightstand. "Dear Stephanie, you are freed from my presence and plague. Be happy in your way. Be good to the poor little thing, which is all that remains of me." 14 months later, Count Artur Potocki, her great love, dies of tongue cancer. He is not yet 40. At their last meeting, he could barely speak. Stephanie writes to her sister, "I have lost my best friend, a man I valued so highly and loved so much." Within 14 months, she has lost 2 beloved men. After 11 years of widowhood, Stephanie does the unthinkable. She marries for love. Count Elimir Launier, a Hungarian Protestant of lower rank. The Viennese press calls it wonderfully romantic. The court calls it a scandal. Stephanie loses all imperial titles. Her daughter Elizabeth Marie remains in Vienna. Elizabeth Marie breaks contact with her mother. She sees the remarriage as betrayal of her father's memory. They will never reconcile. Shortly after, Stephanie's mother, Queen Marie Henriette, dies. Stephanie travels to the funeral. She wants to say goodbye at the coffin, but when her father, King Leopold II, learns she is in the chapel, he has her thrown out. Her own father refuses to see her. She is not allowed to attend the funeral. The Brussels population cheers Stephanie in the streets. But her family? They have disowned her. When Leopold II dies, Stephanie and her sister sue the Belgian state. They want their share of the billions their father stole from the Congo. They lose the case. They get nothing. Years later, in 1934, Stephanie disinherits her only daughter. Elizabeth Marie, the Red Archduchess, lives with a socialist. They haven't seen each other in nearly a decade. Mother and daughter will never see each other again. At 71, Stephanie publishes her memoirs, I Was to Be Empress. The book is a bombshell. In Austria, it is censored. Police search Vienna, bookshops, and confiscate copies. Stephanie publishes Rudolph's last letter. She tells her version of Mayerling. She settles scores with the court. Critics say she dramatized, invented things, made herself the heroine. But she told her truth, and the world listened. Nearly a decade later, the war reaches her castle in Slovakia. The SS confiscates her archives, including letters from Crown Prince Rudolph, historical documents, lost forever. Then comes the Red Army. Russian soldiers storm Stephanie's room. She is 80 years old, heart disease, desperate. She makes the sign of the cross. The soldiers pause. Baffled, they withdraw. In May, Stephanie flees to Pannonhalma Abbey in Hungary, August 23, 1945. Princess Stephanie of Belgium dies of a stroke in the abbey. She is 81 years old, no family at the funeral. Her daughter doesn't come. Her grandchildren don't come. No member of the imperial house. Only her second husband, Elamer, a chambermaid, and the monks follow the coffin. She is buried in the lower church of Pannonhalma. Elamer dies less than a year later, by her side. Princess Stephanie of Belgium was supposed to become Empress of Austria. Instead, she was brutally treated on her wedding night, infected with syphilis, and made infertile, turned into a scapegoat widow after Mayerling, thrown out of her mother's funeral chapel by her father, and disinherited by her own daughter. But she fought back. She took lovers. She married for love, and she wrote her story, even as the world tried to silence her. This is Princess Stephanie of Belgium, the Shadow Queen of Mayerling. She was treated as a commodity. She died forgotten, but her words survive, and we listen.